Hey there, everybody. I just got back from YCS last night, and had a lot of interest in my Gemini deck. Had some people who wanted to see a profile of the current build, and so got it here for you today. And I'm going to kind of do an in-depth profile and explain why I use some of the cards I use in this deck. So let's get right to it. For starters, you got 3 copies of Gem Armadillo. Gem Armadillo is like a Stratos for Gem Knights. When he's normal summoned, you go ahead and search your deck for any Gem Knight monster, and you can add it to your hand. And then I got 2 copies of Gem Turtle. It's a flip effect monster. You can add a Gem Knight fusion to hand when it gets flipped. And what I'm going to be doing here is, this is all just basic search engine, but it's also important that these are both rock type monsters, my armadillos and my turtles. I thought about taking my turtles out, but the fact that they're rock, even more than the fact that they search, is the reason that they've been left in here. 3 copies of Gem Knight Sardonyx. This is one of the Gemini Gem Knights, and when he's Gemini summoned, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can add 1 Gem Knight card from your deck to your hand, which means you can search out any of the monsters. You can search out like a Gem Knight fusion if you haven't already got that. So I actually use him a lot for that. 3 copies of Gem Knight Tourmaline and 3 copies of Gem Knight Garnet. These are the other normals that I run in the deck. I do not run Sapphire because Sapphire is strictly a defense monster, and I'm trying to go more aggro with this. So Garnet has 1900 attack points. The Tourmaline has 1600 attack but 1800 defense, which actually can help it survive if you have to put it in defense position first turn. Gem Knight Obsidian is absolutely amazing. I run 3 copies. If this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can target 1 level 4 lower normal monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which means that if you fuse out of hand, so you send like Obsidian and Gem Knight Garnet to the graveyard with Gem Knight Fusion out of your hand, the Gem Knight Obsidian can target that Gem Knight Garnet and special summon it back, or if you have a different one in your graveyard, including if you have a Sardonyx in your graveyard, he'll special summon that. He can special summon that back, and so that just helps so much, because with Obsidian's ability to get Sardonyx and then Sardonyx's ability to keep you moving through your deck, that's really the engine for the deck in a lot of ways. 2 copies of Rescue Rabbit. This is, kind of a no-brainer because I'm running normal monsters. So yeah. 1 copy of Card Trooper. Card Trooper's extra awesome in this deck because he's an Earth type, and because when he's milling all those cards into my graveyard, I don't really care what I'm losing. Like, if I lose a Gem Knight Fusion, I'll just use Gem Knight Fusion's ability to bring it back to hand. If he mills Gem Knight monsters into my graveyard, I can bring them back with Obsidian, or I can just remove them to get my Gem Knight Fusion back, or he can pump up my grave to 5, which means I can drop one of these guys. 2 copies of Grandsoil, the Elemental Lord. Grandsoil is uber amazing in this. His ability to bring stuff back. I mean, he's just a boss monster. He's a monster reborn in a monster. So that's the monster lineup. Spell lineup: 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 copy of Heavy Storm, 1 copy of Dark Hole, 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon, 2 copies of Gemini Spark. Yeah, the only Gemini monster in the deck is Sardonyx. I do have 3 of him though, and with Obsidian's ability to constantly bring back my Sardonyx, which I'm constantly doing, I don't really ever have a problem getting a Gemini Spark off. 2 copies of Gem Knight Fusion. I only run 2 copies because Gem Knight Fusion can be brought back to hand with its own effect. And if you're just going to keep using the same 1 card over and over, you don't need another copy. So as long as I got 2, I can usually get to 1 pretty quickly. And once I have 1, that's really all I need. 2 copies of Dark Factory of Mass Production. This works with both the Sardonyx and with the other normals that I got in here. It'll just add these cards back to my hand, and 2 of them, which just makes for, once again, really easy fusion summoning, or can help you get out of a jam if you're a little monster light somehow. Onto the traps, I got 1 copy of Call of the Haunted, 2 copies of Mirror Force. This is kind of just a personal choice on the Mirror Force. You could just as easily go with D-Prisons in this spot. 2 copies of Bottomless Trap Hole. Once again, personal choice. I prefer Bottomless in this format over Solemn Warning. I know a lot of people that go the other way, but I prefer Bottomless, so I go with 2 Bottomless. And 2 copies of Torrential Tribute, which is just kind of standard. You know, it's a very standard trap lineup. And then into the extra deck, we've got 2 copies of Gem Knight Ruby. Gem Knight Ruby is pretty awesome. He's got 2500 base attack. He can do breakthrough damage, and you can sack off another gem monster, not Gem Knight, but gem monster, which means that you can actually, I've had a lot of times where I'll sacrifice my Gem Armadillo. I'll just tribute my Gem Armadillo to give my Gem Ruby an extra 1700 attack points and breakthrough. So Ruby's awesome. And he is the combination of Garnet and any Gem Knight monster, so that's Garnet. Moving on. I got 3 copies of Gem Knight Zirconia. This is my big beater for the deck. 2900 attack points, 8 stars. So, for starters, Grand Soil bringing back Zirconia works so amazingly. You can do some really cool overlay plays with Zirconia and Elemental Lord Grand Soil. But he's a fusion of a Gem Knight and any rock monster, so there's plenty of rock monsters in the deck. It's not at all hard to drop multiple Zirconias in a turn. And the Obsidian himself is actually a rock monster, so as long as you're using Obsidian and any other Gem Knight, you can hit Zirconia. 2 copies of Gem Knight Prismara. I don't run Topaz in this. I used to have Topaz, but I chose to go with 2 copies of Prismara over the Topaz because he's got a higher attack at 2450, and his ability says that I can discard a Gem Knight card from my hand to the graveyard to destroy 1 face-up card on the field, which is really great if I'm playing against something like you know, if you've got that D-Fissure on the field that can screw me up, I'll discard my Gem Knight Fusion that I'll just bring back to hand and pop it, or I can do the same thing with like the Gates of Dark World. Will get popped a lot by him. Necro Valley, I will target with him a lot. 2 copies of Gem Knight Citrine. Gem Knight Citrine is the combination of a Gem Knight and a Pyro type. So this is a good play for Sardonyx or for Garnet. And when he declares an attack, your opponent cannot activate the effects of spells, traps, or monsters until the end of the damage step, which is just really nice because if you run into something like a face-down Snowman Eater, for example, Gem Knight Citrine will negate Snowman Eater's effect. Onto the Xyz. 1 copy of number 39 Utopia. 1 copy of Fairy King Albrivardarch. 1 copy of Mstroke the Symphony de Jin. 1 copy of number 16 Shockmaster, which Shockmaster is an absolute must in this deck. I mean, you got so many level 4s. 1 copy of Gaga Cowboy, and I was getting a lot of questions at YCS on why I run Gaga Cowboy in here, and so I'm just gonna kind of show you this real quick. There's many situations where I'll end up in with like, alright, okay, gotta grab the cards out. Sorry about this. Ooh, Rescue Rabbit. Okay, so I got my Rescue Rabbit here, and I'm gonna banish it. Special summon 2 copies of Tourmaline, and I'll go ahead and overlay them for Gaga Cowboy. Now, if I wanted to get this Tourmaline, or if I had it, if it was, you know, 2 copies of Garnet, which it could just as easily be, and I want to get one of these out this turn. There's a lot of times when I found that I want to be able to get the overlaid monster into my graveyard right now, so I can so I can get it back or what have you. So Gygax Cowboy is great because I'll throw him in defense mode and I'll detach one and I'll just inflict 800 damage right there on the spot, and now he's in the graveyard, which means that I can, I can banish him and I can get my Gem Knight Fusion back to hand, or I can fuse 2 copies of Obsidian together if I absolutely have to, and special summon that Garnet back so it's not a complete loss. There's a lot of plays that can be set up, but you need to be able to set them up, and that's why I use Gygax Cowboys, because I can detach it right now. And with the rank 4s, if my opponent doesn't have monsters on the field, this is pretty much useless. If my opponent doesn't have monsters on the field, I can't use Mistrope. If my opponent doesn't attack me, then Utopia isn't going to do me any good. So, like, all these... And you don't always have 3 to overlay. So that's why Gygax Cowboy is great in here, is because you want to be able to have the ability to detach right now on your turn when he's summoned. And the fact that he does in a couple more points of damage is just a bonus. But yeah, Gygax Cowboy is great, and the other reason he's really great is because he's an Earth type, which means that he's just going to feed into your Grand Soil plays. Finally, the last card in my extra deck is 1 copy of the Heretic Sun Dragon Overlord. This is because I have found so many times where it's so advantageous to go, okay, overlay 2 copies of Zirconia for my Heretic Sun Dragon, and then I'm going to activate my Sun Dragon's effect, so I'll detach my Zirconia and send it to the graveyard, and now I have to do the other part of the effect, which is I have to ditch from my hand. So what am I going to tribute from my hand? Well, I'm going to tribute this Obsidian, and that still counts as sending it from your hand to the graveyard, which means that, and the way that Obsidian's effect reads and the timing and everything, you're going to get the Heretic Sun Dragon's effect to pop and destroy that card that you wanted it to, and then the Obsidian's going to activate, and guess what? Gem Knight Zirconia counts as a normal monster, so Obsidian can target it, and boom, you get your monster back just like that. So, what I'm trying to get at you here is, if you already got the 2 Zirconia on the field, and you got that Obsidian in hand, it's a great time to overlay, because you're just going to get a free big monster, and you're going to pop one of their cards. Let's see. So, like, that's pretty much the whole deck. Obviously, we've got our boss monsters now, and as long as you build a strong build around it, I really do recommend that you make sure to get your Gemini Sparks and your Dark Factories, because otherwise you will end up in top deck mode. Like these cards save me every single game. Same thing with Card Trooper. The ability to draw an extra card when he's destroyed is just a +1. If I had the room in my deck, I'd actually put a second Card Trooper in, but I want to keep it at a flat 40, so I don't. Alright, well, that's my deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. Peace.